Well, hello and welcome everyone for those that are listening live and those that will be listening later. We are here for you. I am Nancy Stevens, co-host of Soul Empowerment, and with my wonderful co-host David. Together we are here for you guys to expand and encourage and broaden your ability to connect with your true self through your soul. And all of our conversational topics are curated by David and I to do just that, to give all of you fresh food for the soul, ability to renew, reframe, open your perspective. And that's been my journey as a co-host and as a student, I like to say, of David here on Soul Empowerment. Just to gather and gain new perspectives, new insights, releasing things that no longer serve and expanding on what I'm meant to walk into and move into. And today's topic is none other than just that, food for the soul for all of us. Our topic is garden in the jungle, and that has lots of implications and fine areas to that. Basically, what we are going to be working on in many areas is that even amidst all of the unknowns and knowns of life, those times where you're feeling challenged or pulled or struggling, that there is a beautiful place within each of us, your garden. It's always been there. It will never leave. But oftentimes with the jungle of life, that garden gets full of weeds, stuffed, crammed full, and we're unable to go to find that garden. So we're going to pull some weeds today as we unpack how to process and move through pain that maybe you've caused, others have caused you, struggles or challenges, to always know that no matter what life is about, that you can move into that garden that is within you as a barrier, as not a barrier, but as a means to be whole, to nourish your soul, to own up to the things that you've done rather than hiding or denying, and to put this into proper, beautiful perspective using the beautiful soul growing tool of compassion and self-compassion.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Talk about soul food. I like that. Soul food. Yeah. Well, my name is David McLeod. I am the co-host also of the Soul Empowerment. We've been doing this now for over a year. This is episode number 18, if I'm not mistaken. And we talked, I think in the last couple of episodes, one of them we talked about the shadow and some of the stuff that comes up in darkness. And then we talked about integrity last time in discussing this notion of accountability. And in the process of doing that, my good friend Nancy was very brave and went through an accountability process with me that helped her to maybe connect a little bit to her shadow parts and to learn how to be more compassionate with our shadow parts. This is part of the challenge that I've noticed that we have in life is when we learn at a young age that certain kinds of behaviors are somewhat distressing, shall we say, to the adults in our lives. They don't like them. They find reason to fault us about them. And what we take on internally as a message is, oh, mommy doesn't like that, or mommy's angry, or there's something wrong with me. And eventually it becomes a personal mantra. I am broken. I'm not good enough. That's the sort of thing that happens over time when we continue to get those messages from outside sources. And the problem is our ego minds latch on to those belief systems and really stay connected to them and very helpfully point out all the reasons why those beliefs are true. The ego mind is really good at finding evidence to support whatever belief system you might have for whatever reason. Now, that doesn't mean the belief is true. It just means that it becomes a stronger, you magnetize into that belief system, no matter what else might be going on around you, no matter what other evidence might show up. That's even to the contrary. So consequently, we end up beating ourselves up and knocking ourselves down and becoming our own worst enemy when in fact, that's probably the worst possible thing we can do. If we could learn to love ourselves, if we could learn to be compassionate towards ourselves, if we could learn to forgive any of these wrongdoings that we imagine that we have done, and maybe we really have done them too, the point is, then we can start to elevate ourselves out of the muck and the mire of that stuff and start to live a more fulfilled life. That's really what we're talking about here. So when Nancy talks about the garden, she's actually talking about a place that's a really beautiful place that's inside you that you can go to at any time you want to, in order to heal, to reground yourself, to regain your center, all those things, so that you can continue to show up as an amazing, beautiful, wonderful being that you were meant to be.
Wow. Yes. So true. I think I needed to relearn that right now, because I've been so busy lately in my own life with milestones going on in our household, with our son graduating. We've had a passing of a family member. My parents are aging. I feel that all of my energy has been spread really thin. And when that happens, trying to do too much for too many, I've discovered how easy it is to fall into my old well-worn habit patterns of thinking I need to do more and be more in order to, quote, look calm, polished, available, when in fact, that just moves me further into the jungle of life and further away from connecting with that deep, beautiful place within me that's always there for me. So I spent some time yesterday. I was having, I don't know, one of those days, like feeling like I just wasn't able to get it all done, just not enough. And I gave myself permission to just sit quietly, breathe, and connect, and just go to that quiet place within me that was nourishing myself.
Can I just interrupt for a sec? Hey, Ricky, it's great to see you here. I'm wondering if you mind, just turn off your camera, please. We're just doing this as a presentation. It's not thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Nancy, and continue with what you were saying. I was really starting to resonate with.
So again, this isn't something I just, as you and I always know, the work that we're doing is ongoing. It never stops. All we can do,
truth.
Right, darn, shucks. All we can do is, as we learn how to tap into that deep place of love, connection, is to be able to then use that as a tool that when we start to feel ungrounded, anxious, angry, we can, oh, wait a minute, I have some tools to use to get back into being grounded, centered, and connected, rather than scattered, chaotic, and anxious or frantic or whatnot. So I was able to use some tools on myself yesterday because I felt completely just, you name it. It's like I felt like it was Monday, number one. That's right. Why. So I was in the jungle yesterday, deep in it. And I had to give myself permission to sit and reconnect, to soothe. And I now know that I did it from a place not of scarcity or guilt, but from a place of deep love, that this was my lesson to learn yesterday. Right. So
that's awesome that you were able to do that. And as you say, we're never quite done. And I know that can sound frustrating for people. You mean I'm never going to be done with this? I'm going to have to keep doing this over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, not exactly.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, when you have one experience, you're going to learn something from it. But maybe there's more yet to learn that you didn't learn the first time around. So the experience may show up a second, a third, or even 1,000th time in your life. Each time you learn something more, perhaps about how you show up, about how you treat other people. Perhaps there's all kinds of things that you can learn, and maybe sometimes it's kind of like you beat your head against the wall until either the wall goes away or you realize that this beating my head against the wall isn't really doing what I think it's doing. It's doing something quite different. And so that's when you have to, you stop and you look at your situation and you say, oh, I see. So there's actually this lesson out here that I'm supposed to be learning, and not just these little lessons here.
Yeah.
And that's when I don't think even then, I don't think it ever stops. I think because it's all about growth, right? Mm-hmm. But if you think about it, it's kind of like going around in a spiral, Each time you go around, you're never quite in exactly the same place. So each time you go around, you have a little bit more consciousness, a little bit more awareness, a little bit more elevation in your life, and you continue around, you learn more things. And not only that, but what happens is, as you have more practice at this, you find yourself getting out of the jungle and into the garden much more quickly. It seems to happen more often and more automatically. That's kind of what I would say.
Yes, I agree. And I think one of the key points of what we're working on today is this place of when we are in the jungle of life, maybe feeling alone, disconnected, angry from something that we very well could have caused by what we said or did or reacted, or what happened to us. The part of my journey, and I feel the journey here, is what do we do? Again, how do we tap into this place when we're in the jungle feeling, mucky or crappy? That becomes the tool or that moves us through all of these journeys, which is what I had to learn to do years ago, because I was stuck in the weeds most of the time. Was learning to actually care and love for myself. And it sounds really amazing to say that. And you're like, of course, who wouldn't want to love, of course I love myself or like myself, or I don't know, value. But really, unfortunately, as you said, how we are conditioned, we were conditioned initially by our parents or caregivers at a young age. And as I'm learning, we just attached ourselves to that learning, whether it was good, bad, or neutral. And
exactly. Yeah.
That's the part of the unlearning, I suppose, and learning anew what to do when we're in this old habit pattern of running into that wall, trying to think it's going to work this time when it doesn't.
Right. I just want to invite everybody who's here on the live presentation, please feel free to post your comments in the chat on the left side of the screen. And if you have questions, we'll be happy to do our best to answer those as we do, or as we can. You know what I'm saying. But we really do want to have you to participate just through the chat for now, if you don't mind. And if you have, if you resonate with what we're saying, if you have your own experience of being in the jungle, maybe you can share that with us and tell us a little bit about that, and we can talk about that as well. Yeah. So you've said some really good things here, and one of the things that I remember about being in the jungle is when I was younger, it seemed like the jungle was just the place I was. Everything seemed like the jungle to me. And I wasn't a particularly happy person. And in fact, in many ways, I showed up as an angry and resentful person, although I would never have admitted it at the time. And it wasn't until I had a pretty powerful wake-up call involving my sister that all of a sudden I was brought to full awareness about how I was showing up. And I sort of didn't like what I saw. I didn't like the way I had created my life. And I thought, there's something, I have to do something here. And thankfully, I was able to find the people, the circumstances, the conditions, the materials that would help me to unravel all the crazy, twisted, spaghetti-like beliefs that I had in my head and come down back to the truth of who I really am. Once I did that, getting back to the truth of who I am, it seemed like I am spending more time in the garden than in the jungle these days. Sure, the jungle still shows up, and very, very strange circumstances happen in the world. We've all experienced a pretty crazy, what is it, 12, 13, 14 months that we've gone through this very, very strange scenario. And that is the jungle in action, the externalized form of the jungle. But if you think about it for a moment, everything that's happening out there is just happening. That's all it is. It's just stuff that's going on. The real thing that affects us is how we react to what is happening. How do we judge it? How do we condemn it or bless it? How do we react to it? Are we trying to fight it, or are we just trying to live with it and flow with it? What are we trying to do? And each of those kinds of responses is going to have a different outcome for us. I'm not saying that you should just simply allow bad things to happen. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to decide what's important to refuse, what's important to accept, So those are important things for us to be considering all the time. And we have to be compassionate in order to do that.
Yes, that is definitely the foundation, the cornerstone. And with that compassion, of course, has to be the mindfulness piece, because how are you going to get to self-compassion and compassion if you're not even aware it's happening, or if you think it's everyone else's fault that you are there? And I know that was our journey, that a series of things kept occurring to us, different ways, different people. Finally, the mirror was flashed in our face, so to speak, to the point where we were like, oh, this is ugly. What? So at some point, all of the messages you may be receiving, initially blaming the world or thinking it's from somebody else or something or a season, initially, the mirror is going to give you an opportunity, or if I call it an open door, to have this magnified. And then at that point, you would have the choice of dealing with this or handling it or looking into it, or saying, not right now, I'm going to just continue on. David and I, after having this opportunity of seeing all the lovely life things, the good, bad, the neutral, decided to go inward and learn who we were on our inside, what was missing, what other energies did we have within us that weren't ours. A big piece of my work was I was carrying a lot of energy from my parents and me, from their parents, etc., thinking it was mine. And that sent a lot of mixed messages to me of, trying to react or act according to how my parents or good friends were acting. And so I had, it's a process of doing a lot of work. And the big piece for me was the piece of loving myself, of really, truly learning to be comfortable with all of the aspects of me, the easy ones, the shadow ones, integrating all of that. And it is, it's not for the faint of heart, but wow, that's what really gets us to be, to really move into that garden.
That's right. Yeah. The faint of heart. Yeah. It requires courage. That's for sure.
Yeah, it does.
And courage to me is just a word that means passion from the heart, kur, which is heart, and rage, rage, well, I don't think it really is rage, but that passion of the heart. If you can allow that to exist, then you can step into your fear much more confidently and know that you're simply showing up as who you are. And I think that there's another piece there that when you understand the truth of who you really are as a divine, magnificent, boundless being of light and love, you also tend to become more aware of the fact that in the grand scheme of things, you are effectively immortal. You're going to live forever in this spiritual form. Maybe not in the physical form. This physical form may transition and do all kinds of things. But in your spiritual form, there is no end to you. There's no beginning, there's no end. And so consequently, the fear of dying is really only the fear of the ego mind losing its place in this world. That's all it is. I just wanted to acknowledge Ricky. She wrote a comment. She said that seems to be the watchwords for this time. And I think when she says watchwords, she's referring to compassion and acceptance of pandemic and everything else that's happening all around us. I've suggested to clients and friends to breathe and even count to 10 and let it settle before making judgments. Great advice for sure. One of the things I like to tell people to do is, as you count, imagine yourself becoming closer and closer and closer to your heart with each number that you get to. And as you do that, it makes it so much easier to stay in that place of grounded centeredness, in the garden, if you like. And then the judgments, you may still have judgments, but you will now understand where those judgments are coming from, and you'll be able to deal with them a lot better.
Yes. In fact, that is what I was doing yesterday, in order to bring myself into the garden, was sitting very quietly and really infusing full, deep breaths that refueled me with oxygen and blood flow, but also each breath disconnected me from what was a supposed issue or problem and brought me back into that beautiful zone of who I was, just someone who wanted to be loved and connected and understood, and moving away from all the shoulds, the coulds, all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
the breath work is one of the tools that you are definitely going to want to use to move into the garden. And I use the breath every day. I teach mind body classes, and that's just something that's so important that I think we're, with everything going on, we just unbeknownst, we unconsciously are clenched and holding our breath in. We're not breathing fully. We're breathing maybe more from the neck when we want to breathe from the chest, and moving down, you can't see, but down in our diaphragm. That's a very, very beautiful tool.
Yeah, the idea of breath. I mean, breath is like the one constant that you hear about in virtually every meditation teaching that's out there. And well, the reason for choosing the breath is very simple. The whole objective of meditation is to help you to learn how to be present, to be here and now. And one thing that you can say about the breath, it is never occurring in the past or in the future. It is only occurring right now. So it is a perfect element to focus attention on, especially if you can watch the breath as you're meditating. You can actually feel the breath going in and down into your lungs, and then maybe coming back out again. You feel the coolness on your nose. All those things happening right now. They're not happening in the future or in the past, right? And that's the reason that they encourage the breath. And I really liked your idea, Nancy, of allowing the breath to deepen your connection to that garden and to the truth of who you really are.
Yeah. Well, it's a wrap. We've settled all the world's problems. We're all going to breathe. So that's using breath work. Initially, when I started my journey of living in the jungle, I thought it was a complete waste of time. What do you mean? I'm breathing. Who cares? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
However, the breath is the life force. It's literally physically nourishing. It's spiritual nourishment. And again, it's food for the soul that grounds and connects us and allows us space if we are feeling anxious or under attack. Pausing to breathe, even 3 full deep diaphragmatic breaths, will bring you out of what you are attaching so much weightiness to, and it resets you to have a moment to pause and maybe see things in a different light, or to see things as they really are, not as you perceive them to be in that moment. That's a big deal for me. I definitely would need to do more, but I do work on breath work every day. And when I feel anxiety coming into me, I use the breath, and it really helps to dissipate. So that's a good test to know. It's another tool. If you don't know whether you're having an anxiety attack, it can look and feel different for everyone. When I have anxiety, I get really nauseous. It's weird. You're like, I know, like Ricky, you said you felt like you were having a heart attack, or people feel like they can't breathe. I feel for no reason nauseous. And so now I know, that's my anxiety coming in. I'm going to pause and take several deep, slow breaths. And usually all of that nauseousness leaves. So that's when I know it truly is anxiety versus, stomach flu or whatnot. So it's amazing the tool of the breath. I know there's many others that you can utilize to tend to your place in the garden. It's
interesting to me that I don't think we talked about breath when we were having our conversation about this topic. So this is one of the beautiful things about these conversations, folks. We pretty much allow them to go wherever they want to go because spirit is guiding this discussion. It's not like we're forcing it to go in any particular direction. So I love the fact that you've brought breath into the discussion, because the breath really is, as you said, it's the juice of life. It is what keeps that garden growing. It is what keeps, it keeps the jungle growing too. But what happens is if we breathe in this chaotic, uncontrolled manner, that's when we start to have jungle kind of environment in our life, where we learn to breathe consciously and relax in a relaxed manner, and control the breath to the maximum extent possible, and nice deep cleansing breaths. When we do that, we are kind of allowing the jungle to fade away into the distance and allowing ourselves to settle into that garden. It's a beautiful metaphor. I'm so glad we came up with it.
Yeah, and it just fits. So again, I like not to harp on the breath, but it's one of the tools in case, if you're new to this work and are like, well, okay, you've told me that I'm in this jungle and I really want to cultivate that garden that's mine, that's always been there. But I don't know what to do. I'm always in the jungle. Well, the breath is one of the tools that's a gift to you and to all of us to use to move and transition into the garden, along with visualization, right? David, I know you probably use that with your clients of visualizing or imagining yourself in that beautiful garden. However, what is that? What is in your garden? What plants or trees or grasses? Where is it? Visualizing along with the breath to bring you into that calm place where you can work on loving yourself.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The idea of visualizing, and I like what you said. Where is it? What kind of flowers do you have? What kind of, maybe there's water flowing in the background. Who knows what it is? What's your ideal space? And each of us does have an ideal space. And we know, if someone says, well, does it have animals in it? You might say yes, or you might say no. And if it does have animals, you might say, what kind? Well, maybe it's got tigers, or maybe you're more into the panda type of animal. Whatever it is, allow yourself to imagine in as much detail as possible what this garden looks like and feels like for you. And then think about what the smells are. What does it smell like in your garden? And is the air cool, or is it warm? Is the air humid, or is it dry? You know what you really, really like. So create that in your imagination. And as you breathe, just see yourself. I am in my garden. Inhale, I am. Exhale, in my garden. And just say that repeatedly as you breathe. And you can substitute other phrases too. For example, I am love, or I am relaxed, or I am amazing. Whatever word you want to say, I am love, I am compassion, I am a beautiful person, I am a divine being. Anything that feels true for you in that moment, just inhale, I am, and exhale the truth. You see, the power of that, it just deepens your connection to your garden in such an amazing way. And you begin to feel self-love, even if you don't explicitly seek it. You begin to feel it. You begin to recognize your own value in this universe. It's very, very powerful.
That is. I just went into my garden when you were speaking of that. So thank you. Yeah. So that, again, another tool maybe to, if you're not able to get outside, getting outside in nature is a beautiful way to really remind you of that garden within you. It's a literal and figurative way of being out with the natural light, in the sounds of nature, especially now that we are in a time of late spring, summer. So getting out there and connecting as much as you can daily, and then at times when you can't, bringing that within. If you are have a working a job that just you're not able to get outside, or in a situation or scene where you can't, you can bring that which is comforting to you by having had time in nature into you, no matter where you are. I have a very strong, because I am outdoors constantly, I can bring that as needed. If I'm somewhere that I can't get outside, I can bring that beauty of what nourishes me. And another thing that kind of bubbled up to me, that as we move into the garden, using that tool of self-compassion and compassion, instead of denying and running from the things that we've caused or have occurred to us, we're able to face them, and in doing so, learn from them, forgive ourselves, and forgive others.
Right.
Would you expand on that, David? I'll make you expand on that.
Okay, thank you. Well, before I do, I just want to acknowledge Ricky again. She shared her vision of what her garden looks like. She says, mountains with clear skies and a couple of white fluffy clouds floating in the incredible blue, and the smell of rain that has cleared the air and made everything shiny and refreshed. Beautiful. That's a beautiful image that obviously touches you and is important to you. I know my ideal place is actually a mountain surrounded by ocean in the middle of a meadow. Now, it's impossible, of course, because you can't have all that sort of stuff. But if I could have my own perfect space, that's how it would be. It would contain all those things, because every one of those kinds of environments has a healing energy for me. So what happens is usually I'll be in my little garden, if you like, and sometimes I'll be beside the ocean with the waves coming over and stuff, or maybe I'll be on the top of a mountain looking into the valley, or maybe I'll be in a meadow just surrounded by beautiful flowers. So it depends on the mood I'm in, what kind of day I'm having, and all that kind of stuff. So don't be limited. Just trust your heart to speak about where you would like to be right now and how you want your garden to look in this moment. Now, I'm sorry, Nancy, you asked me to expand on something, and so just remind me what it was you wanted me to expand on.
I will. As we're talking about creating these lovely images of our own personal garden to go to and harvest the richness that's ours, what comes up also is, as we are in the place of the jungle with pain or anger from woundedness, from maybe something that we caused, or someone or something gave to us. Another aspect is, what do we want to do, and how to best dissipate, not deny or disconnect, because that was in a well-worn habit pattern of me. When something occurred to me, or I did something, was to deny it, or make or excuse or blame or excuse. But that just kind of makes everything flatline. Getting to the point of being in your garden is important, is I've learned and I'm learning, is to stay in that, even if you're ticked off, angry, or deflated, staying with that in order to learn and harvest from that, so you can be in the garden. So I'd like you to expand on that.
Okay, so what comes up for me as you're talking about that is the concept of choice and responsibility. And the last couple of episodes we talked about shadow and we talked about accountability, and accountability really is a step towards taking full responsibility for every choice that we make, every choice. And I'm talking not so much about the choices that cause pain necessarily, although those are certainly choices you want to look at. I'm talking more about my choice to judge something as good, bad, or indifferent, or whatever the case may be. If I'm in a situation and I'm all grumbly about it, all right, and I'm upset, maybe I'm even angry about it, the first thing I want to do is acknowledge that that's how I feel. Acknowledge, accept, and feel it. Just let the energy come through me. That's what I do. And I say, okay, I'm feeling angry and I just need to get this energy out of me. Or whatever the feeling might be. It might not be anger, it might be something else. To own it and to say, this is just what's happening. This body is experiencing that sensation of anger, the flow of anger, and it wants to lash out. I can feel my arms just kind of jumping up and down. I can feel my body tensing up. It's like I'm ready to attack something. I can feel that in my body. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and attack somebody. And when I say feel it, I'm not saying to allow the feeling to necessarily respond in that way. What I am saying is acknowledge it, accept it, own it, and take responsibility for it. And then what you can do is you can say, okay, now that that energy has passed, what was it that I was choosing to believe that allowed that energy to become present in my body in the first place? Could I have chosen something different? Could I have decided a different outcome? Could I have made a different judgment that would have served me better? See, those are questions I can ask, and I can ask them in a way that doesn't make me wrong for the choice I made, but rather simply acknowledges, this is the choice I made. How did it serve me? That's all. And so in a sense, I am taking accountability privately without a facilitator, and I'm looking at my own choices and the outcomes that they created, the consequences that came about as a result of those choices. You see? And those consequences may have been to other people, they may have been to circumstances outside, or they may have only been consequences to me personally. Whatever the case it may be, it's an opportunity for me to look at it, to own it, and to say, this is what I chose. This is what my choices created. And I forgive myself. You know, I have to get to that place of saying, I forgive myself for the choices I made, because I maybe wasn't fully aware at the time that I made those choices. I allowed myself to fall asleep, metaphorically speaking, and forget about the truth of who I am. I allowed myself to do that. And in when I made that decision, when I allowed that to happen, all these other chaotic things took place, and I take responsibility for those creations. Do you see? So it all boils down to being willing to take responsibility. Now, what about some of the big things in the world? Like, okay, we have a pandemic. Well, what is my responsibility with respect to that pandemic? You know, obviously I didn't cause it to happen. You know, I'm not the one responsible for making that sort of thing happen, but how I respond to it, that is my responsibility. Do you see? How I react to it is my responsibility. And you may or may not like the way I react. Other people may or may not like the way I react. And that's okay too. Your choice to like it or dislike it, that's your responsibility. Do you see? So we all have our own responsibilities, and we all have to simply own it as true. Because pointing the finger of blame and trying to say, well, it's your fault, that's not going to solve anybody and any issues at all. I don't think that's quite where you had in mind I was going, but that's where I went.
Well, that was beautifully put. And that is there's definitely a tool to be found in there, is that when we find ourselves in the weeds of the jungle, feeling stuck or unable to move, the first step is to, rather than run away or retreat, to stand completely and fully into how we're feeling, whether it's, angry, slighted, disheartened, disconnected, to stand fully in that feeling, number one, and own it, versus running and hiding or denying, or going back to some of those basic, I call it life preserver things.
Oh,
and then
I like that.
Life preserver. Preserve. Ooh, it's not my fault. Nope, not me. I didn't do it.
That's right.
Who knows? So moving away from the well-worn life preserver tools and saying, wait a minute, okay, maybe I did have a hand. I had a hand in this. Okay, I own this. Or, wow, this occurred to me. It doesn't appear to be, whatever, fair or just, but okay, it happened. And then instead of heaping on loads of, all the more negative energy, just stand in that energy and just be okay to be there, be okay to be in that place, and let that slowly begin to dissipate and release itself, so that you are not stuck or feeling exposed or raw. Because that's what I used to do, was just be completely, try to run or hide from something I had done or had been done to me, so to speak. And I didn't know that I could stand in it and absorb it and begin to ask those questions. Well, why do I feel this way? Or where's my reaction coming from? What, I didn't know to drill down. So step one would be to just don't run. Don't try to cover it up. Just sit in whatever that is. Sit in that stuff until it starts to recede and dissipate. And then, begin to use the breathing tool, the love tool. There's so many things to do, but it can be really hard if you don't know what to do. You're going to throw the life preserver or ask that life preserver to come to you and think that obviously it's not going to work. I mean, running just it just brings you further into the jungle. So and we all have the garden. Each and every one has that beautiful space that's always been there.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get ourselves caught in the habit of beating ourselves up and we may ask questions like, why the hell did I do that? What the hell was I thinking? Or stuff like that, which has the edge of blame built right into it. It's like, I'm making myself wrong for what I did. It might be more helpful if we can learn how to ask unbiased, what's the word I'm looking for? Unloaded questions that begin with the word how or what. And sometimes, like for example, one of my favorite questions is, how does this serve me? And yeah, the reason I like that question is because it doesn't suppose that the thing does or doesn't serve me. It presupposes that in some way it does serve me, otherwise I wouldn't have invited it in, right? So the question is, how does it serve me? Is it serving my greater good, or is it serving my shadow? Those are questions that we can look at, and we can do it compassionately and lovingly without making ourselves wrong for it, you see? Another way of doing it is, what can I do going forward to shift this energy so that I don't necessarily react the way I did today? What can I do going forward, or how can I shift my behavior? Ask questions like that, and your soul will respond one way or another, either by speaking to you directly or by allowing messages to show up around the universe and around your garden that will help you to see what the answers really are. So.
And I'm reading your comments again, Ricky. I like that. About using that blame or guilt or shame or useless tools, and when taking ownership. Yes. Yeah, is part of when, again, having the tools to use, so that we're not constantly, for those that are just learning, we're not relying on the life preserver tools of blame, guilt, or shame, or not me, that we're able to take the lifeline and use the tools of breathing, of visualization, mindfulness, and that self-love. Yeah,
right.
And we definitely need to teach
it. Ricky also mentions, he says, I think we should teach this to kids in school when they're really young and can use it for their lives, especially using the jungle and garden metaphors. That's great, and kids can understand that. Yeah, I agree. I think that we are really doing our kids a disservice with the kind of garbage we're teaching them in public school right now. We have completely abandoned our children, I'm sorry to say, and it's something that we're starting to pay the price for it now. We're seeing the kinds of blowback that's happening as a result of abandoning our responsibility as parents to teach our kids properly. And so we're seeing it throughout our society today with all these people, rioting and protesting. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a nonviolent protest as far as I'm concerned. But when I see people burning stuff down, knocking down statues, all that kind of stuff, that is to me the absolute opposite of being in the being in the garden. That is in the jungle right there. We're seeing it right before our eyes.
Yeah. Ooh, that could be a whole nother, Ooh, that's a whole nother topic. Very good. But yeah, it'd be pretty awesome to teach this in schools, or, give it as a gift to teach others, because it's not something that's, again, what David and I are discussing, as you know, Ricky, this isn't just available to the elite few or those who are, quote, have a halo of getting it. It's not, it's available to the people like David and I and you that just
Wait, you're saying I don't have a halo?
You do have a halo. I see it.
Well, I got something. I'm not sure it's a halo, but anyway.
Got something. But yeah, I could have gone on blaming others or just feeling like crap every day. But God, that's so tiring. That's life draining to wake up every day feeling like you have to go beat somebody up or beat yourself up. I think that's another thing that this brings me further. Okay, so here's another key point because our world has changed so much from where it was when we were raised to what's going on now. It is vital. It's vital, really, for each and every one that has a heartbeat to learn the tools of forgiveness, compassion, loving themselves. I think there's so much messaging out there about being successful, getting your share. If you have all of these external things, you're the model of success or, achievement, when there is a lot more coming in, but there's that piece of respecting and having reverence for your own very life. And when we do that, then really it's again the soul food. When we can work on our soul by loving ourselves, how much more can things be healed and expand, versus going after all the lovely external stuff that we were taught. I know I was taught to think that, you're going to be fantastic and successful if you hit all these 5 markers right here. Ooh. We do that to our kids. I'm using right now, like my son just graduated high school, and there's so much stress put on the kids to get the perfect test score, to get that test score and the volunteer work, which is great. So you can get into the perfect college, because then when you do all this in high school, you'll be successful. And then these more kids than ever are having severe anxiety and depression and alcoholism. So it does have, I don't know, there's something there.
Yep, something's not working, that's for sure. Yeah, and the question, how is this serving us, doesn't seem to be getting asked very much. Mm-hmm. I mean, it gets asked by people like you and me who are doing our work, but most people are, I'm sad to say, most people are so busy, caught up in the the rat race and that exists in the jungle, that they don't have time to even do self in what's the word, introspection I'm looking for. And so we have a world that is kind of going through some chaotic times right now, and it may be that this chaos is necessary in order for us to move into a more garden-like environment that is probably going to happen within the next 15-20 years or something like that. But some people just can't wait. Some people want it now. And this is what we're here to do, is to teach you how to get to that garden right here, right now. So it's you can be in your garden by moving inside and doing your own personal work. And the more work you do for yourself, i.e., by raising your own consciousness, believe it or not, that is the best thing you can do for the universe. because you raise the collective consciousness of the whole universe by doing that. And that is where the true garden is going to come from. The more of us who do our work, the faster we can get there. That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, well put. Well put. So there is a lot more to than what meets our conversation about the absolute importance and impact of each one of us finding our garden and cultivating the soil of our garden that is, wow, that is self-love, then extends how we give that love to others and to our world. So if the work is left undone by each of us in owning that beautiful garden, then there's a drought. And
I've got to speak here about Renee's share. I like this. Renee took some heart and shared a fairly lengthy post that people who are live can see this, but people on the recording may not see it. So I'm going to just read it. Ooh. Shortly before this session, I was in the jungle. I had an interview, then ran into a friend I hadn't seen in a bit, but it was an odd exchange. I arrived back home and wanted to share these things with my partner. I was also excited to share a few treats of a sushi plate and dessert that my partner previously craved, and now I would surprise him with it. I shared my day with him, then intended to share the treats. However, he responded to the share of my day very agitated and animated, and I was like, what the hell just happened? He got more frustrated that I didn't understand what happened, and I was genuinely beside myself, shocked and so sad. My chest felt heavy, and I just went silent, and he continued with his accelerated tone. He couldn't stop himself. Then he told me that it takes two to get to places like that. I don't agree. I told him that I came as I am with kindness and love. He went into an angered space of, so I'm the bad person? Whoa. There was just so much that had just happened that all I could do was grab my chest, hang my head, and walk away. That blame thing came into the moment, and I just felt so lost. At what? Why? How? I wasn't trying to blame or shame him, but seriously, he erupted out of nowhere. I feel that the shame he felt was internal. It did not come from me, especially not on the level that I was berated for. I could not find my garden in that moment. I went to bed and lay in silence for a good hour, taking those breaths to try and find calm. Wow. Well, first of all, Renee, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that came from your heart. And yeah, it sounds like it was a challenging time. And I think you're right. I think your partner had whatever was going on for him, that it doesn't seem to be his reaction was at the same level as what you were sharing with him. Now, of course, I don't know for sure what you shared with him, so I can't comment on that. But his reaction did seem a little bit exaggerated compared to the situation. Now, as for yourself, you must remember that you have your way of showing up. Someone else has their reaction. The question I would ask you is this: can you allow the other person to simply be in whatever space they are in and to experience whatever it is they're experiencing without taking it on for yourself? That is a challenge for some people. When someone is with me and they suddenly get angry, naturally I assume that they're angry at me or something I did, and sometimes I react accordingly. But it may be that they're just simply angry about something else, and I just happen to be there in the moment, and it has nothing to do with me. In fact, 99% of the time, another person's anger has nothing to do with me. Even if I was there and may have done something that triggered the anger. The anger is always about the person who experiences it. Mm-hmm. So what I can say is, first of all, I want to honor you for holding your own ground to the best of your ability and for taking space to love yourself. That's really the most important thing. I'm not sure what to suggest going forward. I probably would avoid pointing any fingers at any point in time. The way I would approach my partner after this is I would say, well, so I have something I'd like to share with you. Are you open to hearing it? And if the person says no, then say, okay, I understand that you're not open to hear it right now. Can I come back, 10 minutes, an hour, whenever, some other time, as I really want to talk to you about this? And if the answer continues to be no, then you may have another decision that needs to be made. If people are mature enough to be able to have these difficult conversations, then you can approach him. If he says yes, you can say, okay, look, I want to just own my part of this. That's all. I approached you. I had some ideas of sharing some things that happened in my day. I had some ideas of sharing some beautiful sushi that I bought. You didn't know about the sushi because I didn't get to that place yet. And what I noticed is that you seemed to be agitated about something that didn't have anything to do with what I was sharing. And perhaps I didn't listen well enough, but I'd like to give you the opportunity now to tell me what you were upset about. What you were really upset about. You see how you can just simply flip this around by showing compassion to your partner and saying, I don't know what was going on. I would like to know, and I'd like to help you work through it because we're partners. That's what we do. So that's something that I would do if I were in your shoes. Nancy, what would you do? Do you have a similar approach or something different?
That was very eloquently put, that we don't know what's going on in the other person's mind that could have brought their anger to erupt or their frustration. And I guess the first thing, of course, at times we want to think that maybe we said or did something that caused that. But as you said, pretty much for the most part, it's the other person that maybe was using you. You were able to provide them the ability to bring their anger forth in a safe way, even though they might not have wanted to do that, or they did. And what I'm learning to do, because I do absorb other people's energy, is to pause when anger comes at me or unexpected and let them sit with let them go through their whole scenario and give myself permission not to bring their energy into me, because once that happens, no one will be served, because now I've taken in their energy. So I guess everyone has a different way, but typically I agree with you, David, that usually when somebody is angry, they're bringing forth things in themselves that have risen to the surface that they've lost their power over, and it's now shown as anger or something else. So that's kind of a sign to that person, if they're beginning to open to that, oh, there's things that I get to explore and expand and work on. So right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's
I like what you said, Renee. Yeah, I hope we stay. Good for that, Renee. Yeah. So that's something that I had to learn, was to not take people's anger as a personal assault on me, or to bring that anger in, because I wouldn't be able to move through my day or help them. So that would be, I guess that would be another tool to finding, going back into your garden. And I think one other thing we need to clear up, like the garden, we're not totally escaping and like, oh, I'm going to my safe spot. But it's just a place that once you learn how to connect, it's kind of like it's always there, and you can kind of flow in and out of that garden space. It's not either or off or on. It's always there, that you can weave or process or filter things out that come in. It's going to be every day. At least for me right now in my life, something occurs every day. So I'm learning to filter and stay with the truth of who I am, which is a loving woman, and as you are. Yeah.
This whole discussion has all been about the garden in the jungle, or a garden in the jungle. And what we have been describing here as we're approaching the end, is when the jungle seems to be encroaching on you,
Yeah.
and crushing in on your garden, it's difficult to remain grounded and centered. We all have ego minds, and it's our ego minds that tend to be reactive when somebody else is having a reaction. We tend to imagine that we're the ones being under attack, and therefore we go into a defensive mode. And for some of us, that defense looks like an even worse attack. So, I know that was certainly true in my case, man. Nobody could ever get close enough to me to hurt me because I would be attacking them first. You see, that's what I learned. And I'm going to tell you right here and now, that energy is still within me. I really have to work hard to prevent myself from reacting. I have to actually, keep my ego mind in check, kind of quiet it down, and try to consciously bring myself back into this garden. It's an effort. It is work. But the results, the objective is worth it. Because if I can avoid that reaction that causes somebody else some pain, then I've done something good right there.
Yes. Renee, thank you for sharing. We're sending love and radiance to you, that you'll begin to process this as it needs to be for you. And it looks like our time is up today on soul empowerment. Two things. We have Soul Treat 2021 coming up in mid-October at the Art of Living Retreat Center in Boone, North Carolina. We still have tickets available for this incredible event. I'm going to be an experience provider there. David is going to be a presenter. They're also going to have an author night there. And David is now on his, third or fourth book with the Wellness Universe. I was the author in the first book. The books, if David can flash his camera, are right behind you.
Oh, yeah, you can see them right there.
A little bit, yeah. So David and I are both going to be there. It's an incredible, life-changing, soul-filling event, if you can make that. And until next time, we'll be here. Oh, really quick, can I announce this, David, that I'm going to be taking a break for a couple of months. I'm doing some soul searching out west this summer with my husband and family, and I will be not here July and August, but David will be with whatever wonderful topics and guests he may have up his sleeve. So.
Yeah, well, thank you, Nancy, and I hope you have a wonderful time with your family. And I just want to say thank you to all the people who showed up on the live presentation. I really appreciate the comments that we got from, all these people who, shared their hearts with us. And that's what really elevates this and makes it so much more enjoyable and so much richer for people to pay attention to. So with that said, thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on Soul Empowerment. Oh, I should mention, this recording will be up on my website on yourlifemasterycoach.com. And also, you're going to receive an email message from the Learn It Live platform. So I hope that you will take the time to write a positive review for us to help us to encourage other people to come join us. Every star that you add gives us a little bit more impetus to keep delivering good stuff.
Yes. And thank you, everyone, so much. Really has been a pleasure to be here with you today, sharing and learning as always in this soul food discussion, soul empowering.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.